There is a distinction that needs to be made between legality and morality, and this distinction is often missed. So a lot of people who simply oppose the idea that abortion could ever be justified morally say that it should also be illegal. But the data shows differently, in that abortion rates go down when abortion is legal. I'll link the data in the description. What this means is that whether you think abortion can ever be justified or not, you should be pro-choice legally. However, the question of whether abortion can ever be justified morally is a different one, so let's talk about it. Right out of the gate, I want to make it very clear that the choice to conceive or not conceive is of primary importance, and anything regarding abortion is secondary to that. However, abortion is something that comes up, and it's something that has to be considered. So let's consider it. The key point that I have for all of this is that life is valued on a potential basis. If you don't value life on a potential basis, that's probably rather odd. You probably already do. I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's say we had something like the trolley problem, except the 5 people are all terminally ill cancer patients who are probably going to die within a couple of weeks. And on the other side of the tracks is one healthy 5-year-old. Where do you want the train to go? Probably you want it to go hit the terminally ill cancer patients. Why is that? You're killing more people, you're going to cause more pain in the moment, but there's a lot less potential life loss there, right? They all together only have maybe a few months of potential life, but the 5-year-old has something like 80 years of potential life, and the 5-year-old probably has 80 years of more positive potential life. So remember, it's a quality times quantity product. That's something that I should also make very clear, is that it's not just about increasing the quantity of life, it's about increasing the quality of life. And if the quality dips into the negative, which it's hard to say what that means objectively, but you know, in extreme cases it's pretty easy to tell. If the quality dips into the negative, more of that is bad, because that's decreasing the quality times quantity product, which is what we want to maximize. Another example might be if your friend falls unconscious and something comes along and is going to kill him, do you try to save your friend? Probably. Well, why? He's unconscious, he's not going to feel anything. If he dies there, you know, no pain on his part. Why do you want to save him? It's because you value life potentially. Now, what's the actual biological, psychological reason? That has to do with, obviously, evolutionary psychology and evolutionary biology and all of that, but the moral, the ethical reason is because you value life potentially. And in my ethical basis, that is part of the conclusion, is that life is valued on this potential future basis. So, what does this actually mean for abortion? It means that all the talk about where does life begin, does it feel pain, at what point during the pregnancy, is it okay or whatever, none of that means anything. None of that matters, because it's about potential life. An embryo has just as much potential, just about as much potential, as a full-fledged fetus. Okay? And since we're valuing life on a potential basis, it doesn't matter what stage of pregnancy we're talking about. It just matters that there's potential life, and is it justified to take that potential life away? Is taking that potential life away going to increase or decrease the quality times quantity product? So let's take a worst case scenario where a woman gets raped, she unfortunately becomes pregnant, and the child poses a danger to her, as in she's probably going to die in childbirth. How do we evaluate that? To a lot of people, it might be patently obvious at this point that the abortion is therefore justified, but we have to look at that quality times quantity product. What's going to maximize it? Is it the abortion, or is it not? I want to emphasize that this is a horrific situation, but just because this woman has experienced a truly horrendous injustice does not mean we can throw out rationality and just say we're going to base it all off of emotions and base our decision solely on the being with which we can empathize, the woman, and not think at all about the being that we cannot empathize with, which is the child. Right? You can't empathize with an unborn child. You can't see them, you can't hear them. You know they exist, and that's about it. Right? There's an interesting phenomenon where, I mean, it's not that interesting, but it's widespread, which is that essentially, once you go outside of your empathetic bubble, or whatever you want to call it, the sphere of beings with which you can empathize, once you go outside of that, there is very little moral consideration, if any. And that's not sound reasoning, it's not rational, but it's what we do, and it's a big reason why there's so much irrationality and emotional reasoning regarding abortion. So, how do we maximize that quality times quantity product? Well, unfortunately in this case, it's not by doing the abortion, because the child has more potential quantity and more potential quality than the woman. And so in this case, what we're doing is, because she's going to die in childbirth if she has the child, and the other option is killing the child by aborting it, we're having to choose between the child and the mother. Who is more valuable? And in this case, as horrific as the situation is, the child is more valuable. The potential quality times quantity product is greater if you preserve the child than if you preserve the mother in that situation. Now, a lot of pregnancies that go like that, a lot of births that go like that, will actually also result in the child being at least injured, if not killed. And in that case, it would be better to abort the child, because then you're at least preserving the mother's life. Okay? However, if the child is going to make it, it's better to preserve that child, because they have more potential life. I've said this, I feel like, a million times now, but it's an important point to drive home, is that we need to be rational about this and think, what's the objectively best thing to do here? And unfortunately, for our feelings, I guess, it's not really an unfortunate thing that that's the truth, but it certainly feels bad. But we have to remember the reason why this feels bad is because the right to choose to conceive or not to conceive was violated. Okay, and again, I'll go back to that. That is of paramount importance. That's the primary thing. If that was always fulfilled, if people always had the choice, and then the choice was never taken from them whether to conceive or not to conceive, if that was the case, we would never have to deal with abortion. And that would be a whole lot better. But unfortunately, we have to deal with abortion. And there aren't really any situations that realistically arise in which it's okay, unless the child is in danger and it is endangering the mother, in which case, obviously, you're not going to get any benefit from the child going through with the pregnancy. But that's not a very common case. One of the things that you might notice is a consequence of this line of reasoning is that not having a kid is the ethical equivalent of taking away the entire life of a person. And that seems kind of absurd, right? So therefore the argument must be wrong, right? Well, that's not quite how reasoning works. But yeah, that is actually one of the consequences of life being valued potentially. But, again, it's that quality times quantity product, which means if we started being overpopulated by having as many kids as possible, we would certainly increase the quantity, but we'd probably all starve, and that would decrease the quality quite a lot, maybe even push it into the negative if it's not already there. But certainly it would be negative if we all started starving, and also the quantity might not be that great anyway, because, you're going into the future, and if everybody's starving, they're not going to live as long. So, yeah, that's why we don't want to just have as many kids as possible, but that is a consequence of that line of reasoning. Doesn't make the line of reasoning wrong. Obviously, this is a tough topic. Abortion is super controversial, and I'm sure I will have plenty of disagreeing comments. That's good. Keep them coming. I really enjoy that stuff. I really enjoy, arguing, because if you're not arguing, you're probably in an echo chamber, and that's not good. So, there you go. Yeah, I think a big problem with all the debate around abortion is the conflation of legality and morality on the conservative side, and the kind of abandonment of objective reasoning and the welcoming of emotional reasoning on the liberal side. So, there you go. There's my take on it. Again, disagree with me in the comments, and thanks for watching. See you next week.